I want you to picture this moment. It is a moment I think we have all been in, but it is one I lived through a few years ago that changed everything for me. I was at a dinner party. It was one of those nice ones. Low light, good food, about 6 or 7 of us sitting around a table. The conversation lulls, and I see my opening. I decide to tell a story about a trip I took to Japan. In my head, this story is incredible. It has action, it has travel, it has suspense. So I start talking. I'm about 2 minutes in, describing the train schedule in Tokyo, and I look up. And I see it. The look. You know the look. The person across from me has that glazed-over, polite smile. The one where the eyes are dead but the mouth is curved up. The guy to my right is checking his watch, but he's trying to be subtle about it. And someone else is aggressively picking at a bread roll like it's the most interesting thing in the universe. I was bombing hard. I was doing the one thing you are never, ever supposed to do in a social setting. I was being boring. I wrapped it up awkwardly, trailed off, and someone immediately changed the subject. I went home that night feeling terrible, but also confused. I thought, why did that suck? That happened to me, and it was exciting. Here's the hard truth I had to learn, and it is the first thing we need to address today. The fact that something happened to you does not make it interesting to anyone else. We live in an age of information overload. We are scrolling through TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, consuming the most high-octane, edited narratives every single second. Attention is the most valuable currency on Earth right now. If you cannot capture it and hold it, you don't just lose the audience, you lose the connection. So, how do we stop being boring? How do we take the mundane things that happen to us and turn them into stories that people actually want to listen to? To answer that, we have to look at the biggest mistake people make. I call it the "and then" trap. When most people tell a story, they are just reciting a timeline. I went to the store, and then I saw my friend, and then we got coffee, and then I went home. That is not a story. That is a police report. That is a schedule. The creators of South Park have this brilliant rule. They say if the connecting words between your plot points are, and then, you have failed. The connecting words need to be, therefore, or but. I went to the store to get coffee, but the machine was broken. Therefore, I had to go to the gas station across the street. Suddenly, you have causality. You have friction. You have momentum. But let's go deeper than just mechanics. Let's talk about the biology of boredom. When you are listing facts, the language processing parts of your listener's brain are active. That's it. They are just decoding words. But neuroscientists have found that when you tell a compelling story, one with sensory details, emotions, and stakes, the listener's brain actually lights up in the exact same areas as yours. It is called neural coupling. If I tell you about the cold, wet rain hitting my face, your sensory cortex fires up as if you are feeling that rain. If I tell you about the panic of losing my passport, your amygdala responds. So, step 1 to stop being boring. Stop reporting. Start transporting. You need to drop the listener into the scene. Don't tell me you were tired. Describe how your eyelids felt like they had lead weights on them. Don't tell me your boss was angry. Describe the vein throbbing in his forehead and the silence in the room. However, sensory details aren't enough. You can describe a tree for 20 minutes beautifully, and I will still fall asleep. Every great story, whether it's a 30-second TikTok or a 3-hour Oscar-winning movie, needs one specific ingredient. Without this, you have nothing. Stakes. Stakes answer the question, so what? Why does this matter? What do you stand to lose? Usually, when we tell personal stories, the stakes aren't life or death. You aren't usually running from a bear. But the stakes must be emotional. Let's go back to that boring story I told at the dinner party about Japan. I was telling them about the train schedule. Who cares? But what if I framed it differently? What if I started by saying, I was standing on a platform in Tokyo, and I realized I had lost the piece of paper with the address of the only place I had to sleep that night. It was 11 p.m. My phone was dead, and I didn't speak the language. I have never felt more alone in my entire life. Now, you are listening. Why? Because the stake is safety. The stake is dignity. The struggle is relatable. This leads us to the structure. If you want to be a magnet in conversation, you need to structure your anecdotes. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you need to follow a simple arc. The hook, the struggle, and the transformation. The hook is where you promise me that this story is worth my time. Start in the middle of the action. Don't give me 5 minutes of backstory. Do not start with, "So, it was a Tuesday." Start with the car crash. Start with the moment you realized you made a mistake. Then, the struggle. This is the but, and therefore, something must go wrong. If everything goes according to plan, it is not a story. I went to the beach and had a nice time is boring. I went to the beach and got stung by a jellyfish just as I was trying to impress a date is a story. Lean into the struggle. And finally, the transformation. This is the piece most people miss. A story isn't about events. It is about how those events changed you. At the end, it doesn't have to be a massive spiritual awakening. It can be small. And that is why I never drink tequila on a Tuesday anymore. That is a transformation. It is a lesson learned. When you share how you changed or what you learned, you are being vulnerable. And vulnerability is the antidote to boredom. Think about the most charismatic people you know. They aren't perfect. They tell you about the times they messed up. They tell you about the times they were scared or embarrassed or foolish. Perfection is boring because perfection isn't human. We connect with flaws. We connect with the struggle. So, if you want to stop being boring, you have to be willing to look bad. You have to be willing to admit you didn't know the answer. I want to try something. I want to take a completely mundane event and tell it 2 ways. Let's say, going to the grocery store. Port 1. I went to Trader Joe's yesterday. It was super crowded. I couldn't find the hummus. I finally found it, paid, and came home. Boring. You checked out halfway through. Version 2. I went to Trader Joe's yesterday on a mission. I had 20 minutes before my girlfriend came over, and I had promised to make this specific appetizer. I get there, and it is a war zone. I'm sprinting down the aisle, dodging carts, sweating, and I get to the dip section, and there is 1 container of hummus left, just 1. And as I reach for it, I see this elderly woman reach for it at the exact same time. Now I have a moral dilemma. Do I save my relationship, or do I respect my elders? Do you see the difference? The events are the same, but the second version has stakes, the date. It has conflict, the crowd, the time limit. And it has a specific antagonist, the elderly woman. The beauty of storytelling is that it is a skill, not a talent. You are not born with it. You learn it. You can practice this today. The next time something happens to you, before you open your mouth to share it, take 3 seconds. Ask yourself, where is the conflict? What are the stakes? And how do I start this in the middle of the action? Stop giving us the police report. Give us the movie. Because in the end, we don't tell stories just to pass the time. We tell stories to make sense of the world and to make sure that we aren't alone in it. When you tell a good story, you aren't just entertaining people. You are giving them a piece of yourself. And trust me, that is never boring. So, go out there, find the drama in the ordinary, and tell better stories.